For the average person, calisthenics may be too difficult, flashy, or completely ineffective, which got me thinking, does calisthenics really suck, or is it just you? So since I started calisthenics, I've gotten to hear and see about a lot of mixed feelings regarding to this style of training. Some might say calisthenics is just too difficult for me. Another may say calisthenics is too easy. I can do up to 50 plus push-ups. Or even say, I can't believe I'm about to say this, but calisthenics doesn't build muscle. So after watching a quick clip about Daniel's podcast, it got me inspired to actually talk about the negative remarks around calisthenics and just kind of address why people think calisthenics is unattainable and completely avoid it. But before I put my take on it, I want you guys to hear what Fitness FAQ's podcast has to say about the ambiguous nature of calisthenics.
From the outside looking in, it appears like a lot of calisthenics is a bit of a circus, and that it's just for show. And I also think that sometimes that looks unattainable. So what I mean is calisthenics, like you had said, it could be pull-ups, it could be dips, different variations of those movements. But we see it as kind of the bar star stuff of like flipping around and clapping your hands and catching a bar, or doing, front levers and one-handed handstands. I'm not going to sit down and say, I want to work towards this. It just looks like something that I would never be able to do.
Is calisthenics unattainable? A big point that was made from this short clip. And honestly, from an unbiased view and opinion, I can see why it's unattainable and hard to achieve, especially in this day and age of social media, where all you're seeing is the end result. I can guarantee you that the first time you probably heard or seen about calisthenics, you probably just saw some dude on your Instagram page or TikTok page or whatever that might be doing some kind of advanced move like the muscle up, the planche, handstand push-ups, and so on. And at a first glance, it looks extremely cool. But before you even give yourself the chance to even understand what just occurred, you kind of just push it to the side because you think it's just completely unattainable, which is something that might have just came across your mind, especially in this day and age with like social media, Instagram, and just seeing a bunch of end results. You don't really necessarily see what happens in the background. You don't understand what occurs when it comes to the amount of work and effort needed to actually execute the said skill and exercises. But then we have another scenario, which is I think is also pretty relevant as well. And one might say that calisthenics is just simply too easy and basic. And to kind of back up this narrative, you might see calisthenics as something that you did back in your grade school days. Here in the United States, we used to do something called the pacer test. And this will consist of doing the basic push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, and even doing some sprints, which honestly was kind of hard back in the day, especially since I wasn't really training at all pretty much. But let's say you were the genetic freak, right? And then you did those exact same exercises over and over again. You got really good at them. But then the case was that's all you ever did. Then you never really truly unlocked the entirety of calisthenics. You never understood the potential calisthenics can take you because all you ever did was just the basic push-ups, dips, pull-ups, sit-ups, and so on, which don't get me wrong, these are great, right? This is a great way to just establish that fundamental strength needed for calisthenics, but it's not all you could do. And I think that's the narrative people think of calisthenics. Either you're doing extremely super difficult skills or all you're really doing on a day-to-day basis is just the basics, like the pull-ups and dips and so on, right? But really, in reality, what you don't know is once you get to that point, you're just getting started with calisthenics. You're just getting past that beginner stage of calisthenic training, and you're more than ready to start advancing into the harder progressions, right? You're just now taking the training wheels off that bike. You're just getting started with your calisthenics journey. You're about to bridge the gap between beginner and hopefully, try to reach that advanced strength. And that's just simply because I think nowadays we see a lot of end results, or we see a lot of circuit-based training using the basic exercises. And there's not a lot of people talking about the progressions, right? There's not a lot of people in particular explaining how to progressively overload calisthenics from the basics all the way up to the point of the advanced movements, at least from a gen population standpoint, all right? There are a lot of good influencers and content creators who do break it down, but I can guarantee you if you look on your Explore page or your TikTok For You page, you're just going to be seeing a bunch of circuit rep training, doing a bunch of pull-ups, or you're going to be seeing a bunch of people doing some crazy freestyle calisthenic and static skills. That's pretty much what you kind of get from calisthenics. And that can really keep you spinning your wheels for a very long time if you don't know how to actually understand and implement progressive overload, the process of gradually increasing the difficulty and intensity of an exercise over time. And for this particular case with the circuit-based training, all you're really doing in terms of progressive overload is just increasing the volume or frequency by doing countless reps and sets, which honestly, for most people, that can be pretty repetitive and boring. And to be quite frank, like if we put it in the spectrum of like what you can get with calisthenics with this ring training or weighted calisthenics or just improving the actual progressions, you're not going to be maximizing your muscle growth. You're not going to be maximizing your strength adaptations. You're going to pretty much be stuck at a lower tier level, like in a box, right? Which we don't want to do. But I'm actually going to let you watch this video of Daniel explaining the misconception of implementing progressive overload through calisthenics.
People understand with weights, you do the exercise and you lift weight as a form of progression. With calisthenics, they think that you just jump in and do the exercise, where to build your base, you have to scale back, you have to use regressions. There's a whole host of different ways. We use band assistance, decrease leverage with our body shape. And as you said, on social media, you just see the end result. You see the pinnacle, you see people doing the crazy feats. You're not seeing the reality of what it takes the average person to be able to get to that point. And secondly to that, with the calisthenics style of training you might see online, it looks very disorganized. They're just doing these skills or they're just pumping out reps. There's no real structure. But behind the scenes, the people that are doing it properly, sustainably, and progressing, all types of people, the average Joe, adults, etc., are doing it in a scalable way, just like weights.
Now, Daniel here provided an excellent explanation of like what not to do. The same way you get into the gym, right? You get into the bench press and start pressing away, whether it's with the bar, 5 pounds, 10 pounds, whatever that might be. You don't want to be doing the same approach that you would on the bench press with, say, the handstand push-ups, right? Even if it's with the wall or without the wall. Not only will you increase the risk of injury, but you're not going to be giving yourself the necessary time to understand the mechanics of the actual exercise. So let's say, for example, you can muster your way up to doing 3 to 4 handstand push-ups on the wall, right? But are you really training the handstand push-up, or are you just powering your way through? Because let's kind of break it down. What does the exercise require? And that's simply going to be strength, stability, and balance. Now, if you're lacking stability and balance, then you need to start off by isolating that technical component using the pike holds, the elevator pike holds, the wall handstand holds, using a progression to kind of help you understand how to actually hold a handstand and be in the upside down position. If you're lacking the strength component of the handstand push-up with or without the wall, then you got to start building your overhead pressing strength by doing the pike push-ups, elevator pike push-ups, handstand push-ups, and so on. You need to actively find ways to break down those harder movements into strength levels suitable for you. This can be done with resistance bands, regressing the exercises, training the eccentrics by lowering yourself down, and so much more. Essentially, you want to approach your training and goals by using your brain, which a lot of people may not want to do, but in my opinion, that's what makes calisthenics fun and interesting. There's no one route for success, one way for obtaining that particular feat. And another thing too, the beauty behind advanced calisthenic athletes is the ability to control their body while moving through space, which of course requires those primary muscle groups, for example, the shoulders and triceps within the handstand push-up to actually press your body weight. But you need to train your stabilizer muscles, primary connective tissue, visually see how your body's positioning and alignment is for correct technique and form, which is all done through the progressional exercises. Now, of course, everybody's going to have different strength levels and experiences, which is going to essentially have them start calisthenics at different starting points. And I will say this does prove my point to the ambiguity of calisthenics, but that shouldn't be the reason to why you shouldn't start it at all, or just completely neglect the principle of training the basics. Just because it might seem too hard or seem far-fetched, that doesn't mean it gives you the excuse to actually push it to the side, okay? Or let alone bring somebody down in the gym or in the comments for training the beginner exercises, the complete basics. Let's say they can't do even a single pull-up, but they got goals and aspirations to do like weighted pull-ups or a one-arm pull-up. Like, all that's telling me is you're not willing to put in the work You're not willing to be patient and put in the time necessary to actually stay consistent. You're not even willing to trust yourself by committing to the plan and sticking to it. So if this sounds like you, man, just respect their grind and let them be. Because if you don't like calisthenics, then calisthenics is not for you. If you haven't seen results through calisthenics, then calisthenics doesn't suck. It's just you. And by you, I'm not speaking literally to you, the audience. I'm using that word figuratively. I'm not here to bring nobody down, to speak my honest truth. But hey, what do I know? If you want to see more content like this, be sure to follow me, man. I'm the Tough Fitness Scout here. No cap.
Cobra Trains, he's up next. Make sure y'all subscribe to him. He's number one out here.
He's the toughest fitness guy out here.